The people of Leeds went into shock 2 years ago when they discovered that 3 young men from a quiet suburb had been responsible for the 7/7 bombings in London. Now an American policeman has come to Beeston to learn from officers here how to rebuild relationships with a Muslim community that still feels like it's under siege. It's Friday prayers in Bradford. At one mosque, they're welcoming a special guest who's come all the way from California.
I think it's a tribute to the fact that a Los Angeles police officer, an American, can come to your mosque and feel very welcome.
Mark Stainbrooks here on a mission which began 6 years ago when his country was attacked by terrorists.
The starting point for me was 9/11 because I was probably as ignorant as anyone as to Islam and Muslim communities. I mean, I'd never really had any contact with Muslim communities. But on that day, my father was in the Pentagon when it was hit. It was close enough where smoke was going through his part of the building, and he had to help get people out of the building through the smoke.
Mark's a lieutenant with the Los Angeles Police. He's in Yorkshire to investigate terrorism. At Thornbury Mosque, he's an honoured guest.
2 weeks. You are? You're going to come up with a little badge? I had this interest in Muslim communities and what pressures they must be under after 9/11 and how law enforcement works with Muslim communities in an environment that we have today with terrorist activity.
Islamic extremist terrorism came to Britain 2 years ago when suicide bombers struck in central London. 3 of the terrorists were from Beeston in Leeds.
Well, I chose West Yorkshire specifically because, of course, the bombers came from a part of Leeds, which is in West Yorkshire. And I thought the dynamic there between the police force and the community would be very interesting to look at. We know that the vast majority of the Muslim community, wouldn't do such a thing. And what we need to find out is how do we work with them to make sure that if they have some problem like that in the future, that it doesn't happen again.
Mark's based at Leeds University. He's spending 6 months in a city still feeling the impact of the 7/7 attacks. Mark wants to know how the police work with the Muslim community. One of his new buddies on the beat is Raj Riaz, a special constable as well as a Muslim. Raj is based at Hare Hills in Leeds. For generations, Muslims have settled here from all around the world. There were riots here 6 years ago. Mark and Raj find some young people still don't trust the police.
If you're not British, you're not wanted, end of story.
I don't think.
There's been a lot of stop and searches around this area, which we don't know why. I got stopped and searched for what? They didn't find nothing, but it doesn't look good. This is our community.
On patrol, they stop a young Muslim man with cannabis in his car. It's a routine incident. He'll get a warning and be allowed to go. On local buildings, there's graffiti from a local gang called the HMS, the Hare Hills Mujahideen soldiers. In a disused mosque, there's more evidence of the HMS.
Kind of disrespectful how they treat their old mosque. And they've obviously broken out all the windows and graffitied and trashed it. I still find it fascinating how there's the LA influence. Somehow they relate to American, rap culture in that, and especially the gang-affiliated side of it. They think that's really cool and neat.
Mark and Raj meet some teenagers who say they're in the HMS. They're named after Muslim militants, but they're fascinated by America. They can't believe he's a real-life cop. Mark's an expert on LA street gangs. They want to find out more.
How do you hit this?
How do you hit what?
How do these people like Bloods and Crips become a part of the gangs?
How do they become a part of the gangs? It depends. Like so many of them grow up sometimes in gang families. You know how you guys are talking about you're defending your territory or whatever. That's what they say too. I don't think they hate Americans or American culture, but I obviously think they. Even at that young age, I've had some of them ask me why are the Americans in Iraq? Why are the Americans and the British in Afghanistan?
Mark fears that teenagers like the HMS could be targeted by extremists who use the media as a weapon. In Afghanistan, Mujahideen fighters celebrate the 7/7 bombings. Images like these on the internet are aimed at young recruits in Yorkshire. The Leeds bombers' so-called martyrdom videos, as well as films of suicide bombers preparing to attack British and American targets, are part of a propaganda war which goes far beyond Beeston.
The Muslim communities don't trust the media, and in a way that's an extension. They don't trust the police either. They're under a lot of pressure in many different ways. There are so many investigations going on, there's so many arrests going on, that they're in fear of the police.
After 7/7, Beeston had to come to terms with an act of terrorism committed by men who lived here. Police say they're trying to keep the community together.
There's some very serious offences, and we do need to deal with some very serious crime there. But it doesn't mean that everybody in the community needs to be affected, that their day-to-day lives gets disrupted.
Mark's in the streets where the bombers grew up. For him, this is the front line in tackling extremism before it takes root. Everyone needs to target the terrorists.
On a very local level, a community here in Beeston might be very different from the Muslim community in Bradford, which would be different from the Muslim community in LA. So when we're working from a policing angle, it's not to lump everyone together in kind of one big group, but to realize the issues might be different from Muslim community to Muslim community.
It's time for Mark to take his findings back to LA, and he's hoping what he's learned in Leeds will help US police in their tactics against terror.